Okay, now we move on to the bowls and Babylon. Getting near the end now. Speed up a little. The 7 bowls. Historicis. So, in the historicis system, under the signs, if you remember, the true church has left the large church, the larger church. You have the beast, you have the way the papal system persecuted the true church within it. But now they have left. And for the bowls represents the time period after the true church has left the Catholic Church. After the Reformation. And now the judgment of God turns to the old church, turns to the papal system that corrupted the church. So the bowls in Babylon will be focusing on the papal system and its destruction for the historicists. They begin with the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, which, as we talked about before, in France and then in the rest of Europe, really brought down the power of the Catholic nations in Europe and the Pope's political power in Europe. During this time period, the Napoleonic Wars, France's armies sacked Rome, and the Pope was described as being a prisoner in the Vatican. So most historicists see the first 4 bowls as dealing with this Napoleonic era, how the French Revolution and Napoleon afterwards basically destroyed the Pope's political power in Europe. The 5th is the actual fall of his power. The 6th could be the fall of the Ottoman and Turkish Empire, or maybe the rise of communism. The 7th bowl in the historicist system is still in the future. The historicists, they say that in the 7th bowl, the papal system will be completely destroyed. So there will be no more pope. There will be no papal system running the Catholic Church. It will go completely in the 7th bowl. For preterists, for those who are still focusing on Jerusalem, this is a parallel section to the trumpets. So it's saying the same thing as the trumpets, but using different words. Again, like I said before, you have these bowls. The trumpets and the bowls are related to each other in that they affect the same things in each one. So for them, these are described what is happening within Jerusalem and Judea during the final siege in 70 AD. They say an interesting switch here because the these plagues mirror those of the Exodus. In an irony, Israel has now become Egypt, and the church has now become Israel. So it's like in Exodus, God gave these plagues to free Israel, but now God is giving these plagues to free the church from Israel. Though then they also focus on what's happening in Rome at this time, because this is the time period of Nero's suicide and the traumatic events that follow it. Or, if you're a preterist who now focuses on Rome and no longer Jerusalem, the bowls are God's judgment against pagan Rome for its persecution of the church. So, the bowls represent the similar kind of things that the historicists say that the seals and the trumpets represent, if you remember. So the disasters that befall the Roman Empire, both internally and then externally with the barbarian invasions, these are what the bowls are. They are the fall of Rome. These type of preterists say the reasons why the bowls and the trumpets earlier are similar is because they're the same judgments but on 2 different cities. The trumpets are God's judgment upon Jerusalem, but the bowls are God's judgment upon Rome. So that's why they're the same, but they're different. A different focus, different city. Same judgments, different city. For the futurists, the bowls are future judgments of God, unparalleled in history and global in scope. They represent then the final judgment, the ultimate judgment of God on sinful humanity. So no judgment in history has been anything like the bowls. Depending on who you are as a futurist, they're going to be a mix of literal and symbolic judgments against the kingdom of the beast and all of creation. They happen at the very end of the tribulation. They are the destruction of the beast's kingdom, and they culminate in Armageddon. Armageddon is interesting. The word literally means the Mount of Megiddo, which is fascinating because Megiddo is a plain. It's a flat plain. It does have a small hill in the middle, but it's only a hill. Famous there because it's a great battleground. Many battles of history have been fought in Megiddo. And this has led some people to think that Megiddo actually represents something. It represents the ultimate battle, or a place of battle. So Armageddon could be an expression that means the ultimate battle, or the final defeat of something. So it's the beast, evil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, facing its final defeat. The beast kingdom facing its final defeat in Armageddon. The war is fought by humanity, but no one actually fights. The armies of evil turn up, but then so does Jesus, and they lose. So they see the bowls happening kind of in a similar timescale as Babylon. So when Jesus comes down in chapter 19, he's also coming down. You have a final battle in chapter 19 and in the final section of the bowls. And they're one and the same. The destruction of the beast kingdom, Jesus coming to earth, and then setting up the millennial kingdom. Again, depending on which futurist group you are, it's depending on who's with him and who's he's protecting, whether it's Israel or the church. The idealists, they again also see a relationship between the trumpets and the bowls. They think that the bowls are a repetition of the trumpets, or they're a progression that's repeated. So the trumpets represent a warning, partial judgment, but then the bowls represent a complete judgment. The idea is that there will be a cycle of trumpets and bowls throughout history, that God will judge nations to warn them, but if they refuse to repent, he will then send a bowl to destroy them. Trumpet bowl throughout history. They also point out that these judgments could happen at the same time. So a nation could face a bowl and a trumpet at the same time. If, say for example, you had a group of people, and God judges that group of people, but for one half, this is their second judgment, because 5 years ago they faced a judgment which they refused to repent of. For them, this will be a bowl. It will be a second judgment. It will be a complete defeat for them, a complete judgment. But for the other half of the group, who weren't in that group 5 years ago, this would therefore be a trumpet. It would be a warning. So a nation or a city or a group could face a judgment from God, and for some it would be a trumpet, a warning, and for some it would be a bowl, a complete judgment and destruction. Moving swiftly on to Babylon. Firstly, why Babylon? Why here do we have the city of Babylon mentioned? It's probably because Babylon is the city of exile. Babylon dominates the prophets in the sense that is where they are. The Judah is going to be sent into exile. It's the place of judgment. It's the Jews lost their land and were taken to Babylon, the place of judgment. And they were the people. That was the city that destroyed the temple. That was the city that destroyed Jerusalem. So they are a picture, if you like, of the city against God, the city that is God's enemy, the place of judgment, the place of exile. And you can cross-reference Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel's oracles against Babylon. It's very similar to what is described in Revelation. So if you like, the prophecies against Babylon back then are then repeated in the future for any city, anything that repeats Babylon, that is the same as Babylon, that moves in the spirit of Babylon, if you like. For the historicists, the fall of Babylon is again in the future, has yet to happen. Because for them, Babylon is the papal system. And it will be, and in the final bowl, it will be destroyed. And there will be two different reactions to this. The ungodly will wail because they don't know that it's an evil system. But the godly will rejoice because they will be vindicated because they knew from the start that Babylon was false. So, for the historicists, this is all about the fall of the papal system. Babylon is full of Roman images. The whore is the papal system, riding a dragon on a city with 7 hills, which of course Rome is famous for having. So for them, it's quite blatant. The papal system is a satanic system based in a city with 7 hills. It is the papal system. It is the Pope. It is the head of the Catholic Church, which of course is based in the 7-hilled city of Rome. The rider on the white horse for them would represent how, through the Protestant church, the word is victorious. Their focus on biblical authority, not human tradition. That Christ conquers through the true gospel being spread, through the focus once again on the word. The true word is victorious. For the preterists, Babylon, again, could be either Rome or Jerusalem, depending on the focus of the book, for the second half of the book. So, if it's Jerusalem, it's talking about the final fall of Jerusalem, the final destruction of Jerusalem, and the burning of it by the Romans. So it's basically associating, again, the irony here, it's associating Jerusalem with the city that once destroyed it. It's basically saying that Jerusalem has become Babylon. It has become this evil system. It is a city now against God. That's how much it has fallen. But then if it's Rome, this is why this is the strong point for the preterists who believe it's Rome rather than Jerusalem to be the focus, because they would say this, again, the symbols are obvious. You have a 7-hilled city here. That this is talking about Rome. This is talking about the downfall, the fall of Rome. That this satanic system, the empire worship, the empire cult, the empire itself has been a vehicle of persecution of the church. So the Satan has used the empire to persecute the church, and that's going to fall. It's going to end. And they would point out that this is not the only place in the New Testament where Rome is called Babylon. In Peter himself, Peter describes Rome as Babylon in his letters. Again, perhaps for the same reason, to disguise the nature of the person they're actually talking about. Rather than saying Rome, it's a kind of code word saying Babylon, that Rome has become like Babylon. It is the city against God. For the futurists, Babylon could represent, again, either a spiritual thing, a religious thing, or a literal physical thing. It could be some great apostate religion in the future formed under the Antichrist, which could possibly be the Catholic Church in the future, corrupted by the beasts. Or it could actually be the religion of the second beast. But again, the idea is that the beasts in some way are centered in Rome. Their power base is Rome, so the Roman image is fit. Or it could be an actual physical city. It could be physically representing Rome as the political center of this first beast of the Antichrist kingdom. The idea again of this revived Roman Empire, that in the end the Antichrist will bring about the Roman Empire again, centered in Rome. But whatever Babylon is destroyed at the end of the tribulation. Whether it's religion or its political system, or indeed both, it is destroyed at the end. And the rider is, of course, Jesus for them, Jesus returning to earth. The chapter 19, and the rider is the second coming. So Jesus comes, defeats the armies of the beast in Armageddon, and establishes the millennium. The idealists, of course, Babylon represents any world system that seduces the godly. Any system that seduces the church away from the truth and prevents the rest of the world from seeing the truth is Babylon. In the same way, any political power that persecutes the church is the beast. Any system, be it political, religious, cultural, philosophical, that seduces the church and persecutes in that sense is Babylon. The current Babylon, of course, at the time of John's writing, is the Roman system. It's the Roman worldview, the Roman Empire, its culture, its religion, its emperor cult, etc. And so the vision is described in terms of its current manifestation, hence the 7 hills of Rome. So John uses the language of judgment against Rome in this prophecy, but then that relates to all Romes, to all Babylons that lead the church away from the truth. And just as Rome fell, so would all the other Babylons. Then the ultimate judgment on all Babylons comes when Christ returns in the second coming and ends forever the cycle of beasts and Babylons. So there will be a last Babylon, a final Rome-like system that will be ended by Christ's return. Or the rider could represent Christ's gradual victory over the fallen systems of the world through the gospel. So one by one, the Babylons are defeated.